Yeah.
If that person could no longer be part of your team, what would go missing as a result of that? And a lot of the time at early stage startups, people intentionally become bus people because there's a lot of volatility and they want to be needed in the company. And a lot of the time there's broken leadership structures and people don't get great feedback, so they don't know if they're doing a good job. So as a result of that, they hoard information in order to be valuable. And I think there's a fundamental breakdown in leadership and in communication when people start to feel like they need to do that for job security. So we're constantly coaching kind of founders away from, the siloing of early stage employees and giving good feedback so that people feel validated, so that they feel like they can share and that they're not in competition with their colleagues.
The pursuit of excellence is something we're all striving towards.
I want you to focus on what you do best.
You need to have an approval. How many approvals? What are the steps?
It's really about listening.
If it's not documented, it's not done.
Thanks for tuning into In Systems We Trust, the show where we dive into all things systems and processes and hear from the professionals that are using them to change the landscape of their organizations every day. Welcome back to another episode of In Systems We Trust. Today I'm talking with Sarah Stockdale. Sarah is the founder and CEO of Growclass, an online growth marketing training company. She's also the host of The Growth Effect, a podcast in partnership with the Globe and Mail and in partnership with HSBC, and the author of We Need to Talk About This, a popular blog and newsletter for millennial women. Sarah is also a guest tech expert for the CBC and the CTV, and a TEDx speaker. She's a frequent speaker at universities, events, and conferences across North America. Welcome to the show today, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me on.
You are very welcome. With an intro like that, I feel like you should just get right into one of your TED Talks so we can get a nice sample.
I don't have anything for you today, unfortunately.
You don't have
I wish I could
prepared?
be more helpful.
Oh man, I think it would make for a much more interesting interview if you could just do that.
Sorry.
No problem at all. No, I appreciate you taking the time out to come and do this today. So you're currently the founder and CEO at Growclass. I mean, you're teaching, you're empowering business leaders and marketers to, accelerate their marketing. Can you kind of fill in the blanks? Like, what is Growclass and what do you do?
Yeah, it's a great question because when you hear online education, there's an immediate cringe factor for a lot of people. So we do things very differently at Growclass. So we are the kind of nuts and bolts of it is that we are an online 8-week growth marketing training program. So we start you from the very fundamentals: what is growth, how to build out a growth funnel, how to think about experimentation, customer psychology, and data and analytics. And then we get into the nitty gritty of the tools that you need to execute the growth for your business. Through that, we take you through with a cohort, an incredible community of other founders and marketing leaders who become kind of your team and your network that you go through the course with. So I like to say that we're a course and a big ass community. And that's kind of how we're doing it a little bit differently.
Okay, and you said it's kind of like a cringe-worthy thing off the top there. Do you mean the course aspect? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I think online education, you think of a college professor not knowing how to unmute themselves on Zoom, all the way through to, marketing bros showing you screenshots of their Shopify account that are doctored to show that they made a ton of money yesterday. So when I like to think about online learning, I just think about how do we create opportunities for people to grow from home and build their network without having to leave their house and go sit in a classroom for 3 hours on a Monday afternoon. So we're getting away from thinking about it as an online course in the quote unquote kind of teach you how to growth hack your way to posing in front of a Lamborghini type of thing. That's not really what we're up to.
Fair enough. And so why marketing? Can you give us a bit more information on the background there? Because with everything that you have accomplished, I'm just curious why you've chosen this format, the training versus consulting or an agency or, doing anything like that. Why have you chosen this section? And, again, just fill us in on that background a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So I've spent the last 12 years growing early stage startups. So I started at a company called Wave, which is now H&R Block. It's been acquired by H&R Block, but I was one of the first hires there. And then I grew out the growth team at Tilt, which was acquired by Airbnb. So I've been doing growing companies as like the tactical skill set that I've been honing for my career. And I honestly, when I was coming up in marketing, it was very lonely. I was one of the only women working at these companies. Highly technical people were there. So I was one of the only engineers, one of the only non-engineers, one of the only women, and I didn't have a support system around me to help kind of train and mentor some of those fundamental skills that could help progress my career. So I had to kind of figure that out all on my own. And I think a lot of people are kind of navigating their careers that way. They're kind of, trying to figure it out through Google, trying to find mentorship through asking people to pick their brains. But there isn't really a place that they can go and consistently build themselves up professionally and personally. So it was kind of just this gap that I wanted to fill that I had coming up through marketing, and finding inclusive spaces to learn this stuff is pretty challenging. It's pretty broy out there. So we wanted, like, my passion is more on the community side of it. And marketing and growth was really the wedge of like, this is what I can really contribute value. This is the network that I have. This is what I know how to do really well that can be helpful. And it was kind of born out of an agency. So I did build when I went out on my own, I was consulting for 2 years under the name Valkyrie. And it kind of felt like mercenary work. Like you're being hired to, you're hired very tactically. And I liked it for a period of time, but I like warrior work a little bit better, where you're actually working towards building something that has a lasting impact.
I love that. Yeah, I think that, when you're in that agency or consultancy space, you can sometimes be looked at as a button pusher, right? It's like, do this, do these tactical things for me, accomplish this task. Whereas you took a different approach where you're, bringing knowledge and your expertise and training these people in the way that you feel that they should go. So I love that. And I know that your instructors that you have teaching these courses, and you do a little bit of that as well. I'd love to know more, but these people are coming from places like Shopify and Pinterest and Airbnb. And so what does that kind of look like behind the scenes? How much of your time is devoted to teaching currently, doing the coaching? Are you relying on your coaches? And ultimately, what does a typical week look like for you in your role?
Yeah. So the way that Growclass is structured is I teach, there's 8 modules. I teach 4 of them. And then we have 4 people who I kind of consider like my Avengers of marketing, like the people who I would want to hire on my team if I was to raise a bunch of money in the next little while. And because I did that because I thought it was only fair to learn from the people that I would want to learn from. So if I wasn't the best person to teach it, who is the best person I could possibly get, both from a technical expertise side, who really knows their stuff and has been doing this a really long time, and who's also a good human that you would want to learn from, that you'd want to interact with. And all of the content is asynchronous. So it's all, you can take it at your own pace. So I'm not currently live teaching. It's all kind of on your own time. But then every week we hang out with the students. We have live office hours. So it'll be either me or the instructor will be there for you and in your cohort and answering all of your questions and kind of going through your business with you. And we're also on Slack. So we end up doing a lot on Slack with the students. But yeah, to be honest, I don't have a good typical day, like week in the life kind of thing, because every week is incredibly different. So I have a small team and we're depending on what phase of growth we're in, whether we're in a cohort and we're working with the students and hyper focused on them, or we're kind of in a marketing cycle where we're selling the course, opening up enrollment, writing sales emails, running paid media campaigns. So we're kind of always in one of the seasons of growth for the business and experimenting in in that season. So whether or not that's experimenting with the format of the community and making sure that people are getting everything they want out of the course, or experimenting with marketing, which is obviously something that I have a lot of fun with. And then I'm also, recording the podcast, having great conversations with people like you. I get up really early in the morning. That's when I get most of my work done, is like, I'll get up when it's nice and quiet and do a lot of my writing and do some of the marketing work. And then I'm in meetings for a lot of the days, either with students or with my team, cooking some stuff up. I'm one of those. I really like Peloton. I was like not a convert last year. If you'd asked me last year, I would have like laughed at myself now, because I thought that.
I almost wish you didn't say that.
I feel like you automatically like me less now, but it's
oh boy.
We do what we need to in quarantine to get through it.
You absolutely do. I remember when quarantine first started, I went and got myself a stationary bike. It was like 3 days before lockdown. I drove out of town to go pick one up, and then I brought it home, and it was in my basement, and I downloaded the Peloton app. Like, there's no way that I'm getting a Peloton bike and doing this. And I loved it. I mean, the courses were great. They're super energetic. But I mean, ask when the last time I was on my bike was. Anyways, I want to know, what is early for you? You said you get up in the morning. Are you like a 5 a.m. club person? Are you getting started that early? Okay.
I used to be. So I think before lockdown, I was in like the 5:30 a.m. bucket. Yeah. With lockdown, for some reason, I find, and I don't know if you're finding this too in quarantine, like I need more sleep, just I think because we're all processing more right now. So it's closer to like 6:30ish now.
Okay.
Giving some extra buffer time just for a pandemic burnout. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely a real thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Getting back here. So what does the evolution of Growclass look like? How long has it been live? You said you're, in phases, through cohorts right now. So can you kind of talk about like conception to where it's at right now and what that's looked like as far as evolving your processes, growing your team? I'd love to hear about, kind of that beginning to where we're at now.
Yeah. So we built Growclass the same way we teach people to build companies in Growclass. It started out as an experiment. So we were fully kind of quite busy with consulting clients, but really wanting to move into kind of the next evolution of where we wanted the company to go. We put up a really ugly Squarespace site, still under the old consultancy name, describing what at the time was a 6-week in-person program in Toronto. And just kind of tested it. We had a really small email list of clients because we had mostly been like B2B through network. So we hadn't really been doing any marketing for the company. We had a super small email list, sent it out to them. I tweeted about it 4 times and the course filled. So we saw that signal right away that, okay, there's demand here. This is something that people are looking for. And we didn't expect that kind of response. I think we got like 100 applications in the first like 24 hours. With no marketing, like no brand awareness, like people were just hungry for this kind of education. And there wasn't a lot in the market at the time, especially in Toronto. So we hosted the first 3 cohorts live. We had them, we did a couple in classroom space that we rented, and then we did one at Shopify. And so we were like lugging suitcases through the snow, like 6:30 in the morning on Wednesday mornings, and teaching live with all of our instructors. So we tested all the content with live cohorts and did that knowing full well that we were going to build the course online, but not wanting to build the wrong course. So we wanted to do a lot of that testing and get a lot of feedback from students in those early days. And so we spent a lot of our time talking to people and figuring out what are the most important elements of the technical education and also the experience for them.
Right.
And then figuring out how do we transfer what we've learned from in person into an online program. So we actually started building Growclass. We had a makeup artist, hairdresser, all our instructors, our course producer. We had a whole studio set booked, and then COVID hit. So we built it, rebranded, built an entirely new website, built an entire new product in March, April.
Okay.
So instead of the big studio setup, it was me and one videographer, both wearing masks, like very, very far apart, getting everything done before we went to full lockdown.
Wow, what a journey to get to where you're at right now. And I love hearing those. Everything's going amazing. We're doing all these things, and then COVID hit, right?
Yeah.
But obviously it hasn't stopped you. I must say, like, we're talking offline a bit about your website, and I know you're using Webflow for that, but like everything from like your online presence to, you know, social media, how you're managing that. You have your own podcast. If you're not listening to The Growth Effect, go and subscribe right now. Pause this one, come back and follow along, because it's fantastic content, right? But from your platforms, what you're doing online, like it all feels really systematized, right? And so obviously you're not doing this on your own. Can you talk about, you know, what the structure of the company looks like, your team, and, you know, how do you use systems in your day-to-day to help support your team and vice versa?
Yeah, so this might be surprising, but we've been a team of 2 up until recently. So it was myself and Bella Francis, who is our growth manager. Her and I built it. So we have a videographer, Talon, and a course producer who helped us in the early days getting everything done. But really, Bella and I built the business for the first year. Recently, we brought on someone to manage business development and sales on more of the BD side. And an intern, Hannah, just joined on Monday to kind of help us with social and community. But to be honest, the team's been 2 of us from day one. And we do a lot of kind of, I always like to say, like, we want to look like Goliath, but we are set up like David. Like we're very, very lean. We lean heavily on automation. And a lot of the kind of things that you'll see with social and community, that's where we sink a lot of our time into. So we want to have authentic interactions with as many people as possible, and therefore we're automating as much as we possibly can on the marketing side. So if you join Growclass, all of those processes, we've set everything up with Zapier. Everything will fire. It'll send us a Slack message and let us know. And then we are personally welcoming you into the community. None of that is automated, but making sure that you get everything you need, and that we're sending you a curated Spotify playlist every week, and we're sending you coffee pairings and a suggested schedule and inviting you to webinars. Like, all of that is very much leveraging a lot of marketing automation tools like Zapier and Autopilot to free up our time to do the community stuff.
Amazing. And so when you're doing those emails, obviously you're segmenting your people. Like, just to hear that you're saying personalized Spotify playlist is incredible. But, you know, can you talk more about the tech? Because this is where I would love to go and just geek out for a minute, right? Because I see you're using proof on your website. Like, your video shows the kind of process for when someone does subscribe, they get the welcome email, they get the calendars. And so can you talk about the tech? And then I have just a follow up to that as well. So what does that stack look like to keep everything running?
So I would say, like, the tech stack we use, and kind of my personal tech stack with everything going on with Growclass. So we use Kajabi. That is our course management system. We had someone reach out the other day and ask if we need dev help, and I was like, we are the developers for this. We no code tools for the win. So the course is built on Kajabi. A lot of what we do is held together with Zapier. So a lot of our automations are held together with Zapier. Autopilot, in my opinion, favorite email service provider I've ever had the opportunity to use. Tons and tons of automation capabilities. So we leverage that for all of our both sales and transactional emails. We use Slack a lot with our community. That's where a lot of our community lives. A lot of little experimentation stuff, right? Like Hotjar, making sure that our site, we're, heat mapping folks and making sure that people are completing their goals, or the goals that we would have for them on the site. We use Zendesk Chat. We've tried a whole bunch of things. We've experimented with Facebook Messenger for the last couple weeks. Didn't love the experience of that, so went back to Zendesk. And yeah, like Get Proof, like we have a whole bunch of little tools that we're consistently experimenting. I'm experimenting with Loom right now, so doing some video email stuff. I'm trying to think of what else we use. Yeah, if there's a specific kind of part of the tech stack you're curious about, I'm happy to dig into it a little bit more. But a lot of it is we set up everything to kind of automate itself.
Yeah, I'm curious about what happens kind of behind the scenes. I was going to ask if you have kind of a project manager, but I assume you're moving a lot of the projects through. So like, let's talk about creating the course for a minute, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does your project management look like? How are you keeping everything on track? How are you managing the team?
Yeah.
Because I know that at the time it was the two of you. You're now experiencing growth. So I'd love to know, what did it look like as you were creating it? And what are you doing right now to manage those projects, those processes? Are you doing any kind of automated onboarding for your team or your contractors? Walk me through that whole the process and how that changed over time.
Yeah, so we live and die by Asana. So for everything to do with the course, down to the very nuts and bolts and details, we had our course producer in there basically giving us our project milestones. She kind of acted as our project manager for the course, because we were, curating a whole bunch of content, a whole bunch of instructors in the middle of the very early stages of the pandemic. So we needed to be really on top of each kind of moving part. Yeah. And the thing that I struggle with online courses a lot, especially ones by growth marketers, is that, people are like, this is going to be a passive income project. I'm going to throw a bunch of stuff in a Google Doc and there you go. And we really wanted to have something that felt like the brand all the way through. Our decks are highly designed. We have little GIFs that come in and animate as you're watching things. Like, we really wanted those details to be part of it because they make the learning experience great. That requires a lot of project management, just making sure that all of those details happen. Little things like if any instructor said, hey guys, we would get rid of that because we were trying to keep everything very inclusive. So really going through and checking all of our videos for any weird little verbal tick or slip up. So we used Asana, but we had Monday morning stand-ups with the entire team, and then Friday afternoon check-ins with a lot of conversations in between. And each module had its own board that was broken down by each individual deck. And each deck was there with the accompanying audio so that our videographer had kind of everything lined up. We realized early there was going to be so much content. There's a little over 75 videos. There's like 50 downloadables, like just in terms of the amount of stuff that we'd have to project manage. We had to be incredibly on top of making sure that the content got edited in the right order and that nothing got missed.
Okay. Have you noticed any kind of roadblocks or hiccups as you've experienced this growth, just quickly?
Yeah, I think like the one thing that I think about a lot of the time is scaling community. Like that part is really easy. At least like it's fun and easy when it's a small group of people to help them network and build relationships and connections to each other. When you start to add hundreds of people per cohort, that's when, the ease of those high touch relationships goes away. And you actually have to work at, okay, what are the systems that we're going to use to make sure that people can, get into a support group, that we can match people with, other people who are like them or have skills that are complementary to their goals. How are we going to do that at scale? And to be honest with you, we're still working that out. A lot of it is still a little bit manual at this point. Yeah. And it's going to be our big challenge for 2021 is we don't want to lose the warmth of the community as we scale out. So that's going to require quite a lot of project management.
Did you feel for the most part, though, that you were almost prepared for that? It seems like you've been really like methodical about how this all goes together, staying lean for as long as you could, growing sustainably, right? And so when it comes to those systems and growing, like there is, this knowledge that owners have, right? Because in the beginning, Michael Gerber says, you're doing it. And then you have to pass it off to somebody else, right? And so Did you feel prepared for that? Did you feel like you had the proper systems in place? And if not, like, what has that felt like? How are you documenting those processes? Is it now a team thing? Is it you spending that time and breaking it down and saying, here you go, now it's yours? Tell me more.
Honestly, it's something that we've recently started thinking about a lot more, because for a period of time it was Bella and I, and we kind of had this shared brain, and we knew where everything was, and we knew, how we'd want to do specific things for the brand. As even just bringing on our new intern, we realized how much of that was locked in our own brains, and we hadn't done a really great job of documentation. So our entire week last week was just organizing our Google Drive and trying to get as much of the institutional information about what's going on out of our brains and into somewhere where someone could read it. We'll still spend tons of time with new hires because so much of it is still locked up inside of our brains. But even just like, there are hundreds of decks associated with Growclass. So just having them all, and many versions of those decks that have been edited over time by our videographer and by us. So just having all of the content organized in one place is something that we did last week, because there wasn't one place to go get everything.
And you said that lives in Google Drive right now, or is that in Asana?
Shared Google Drive.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
I got kind of giddy when you said that. Like, number one, like, I love that you guys use Asana. That's great. That's our bread and butter at Ditto. But when you said organizing the Google Drive, that's like something that I do on the weekends just for fun. Like, there's this.
We are
like,
very different.
Yeah. Okay. Like,
I wish.
I just love doing it. Like, every couple months we'll go through and you kind of look through files and you think, do I need this anymore? When's the last time anyone looked at this? Does it need to be updated? Is this even relevant anymore? Trash. I get joy from just like throwing it in the trash, reorganizing, creating folders within folders.
Okay, do you want to be on our team?
Let's do it. Let's talk. Yeah, why not?
It's no, that's definitely somewhere that I struggle with, because I'm on like the neurodivergent spectrum, and the details I find I need a lot of personal processes and systems in order to be able to pick up on little things like having documentation for everything. It's just something that my brain doesn't care about unless I force it to.
Right. Okay. I'm going to challenge you with something, because like a lot of what we do is like, Google Drive and Dropbox, they're great places to store that information. But one of the things that we find when we go in and talk to clients is that, the onboarding process, there are breakdowns where there's a separation from, and even project-based stuff, there's separation from the projects and what's happening and where the knowledge lives. So there always comes the question of, how do I do that thing? Where do I find that piece of information? And so it's like centralizing it all in one place. And for us, that's Asana. So the work is not only actionable through templates and through processes, but if we're not sure how to do something, it's right there for us as well. So I would challenge you into looking into that. I mean, it's probably not going to be you doing it, but it's really, really helped. And just on that, I mean, there is always this in between, whether it's, where's that file? What's the due date? What's the status on this? We had a meeting this morning and we all said we were going to do all of these things, and then we walk away and everyone forgot, and then it's the next day. And so like, we call that work about work, air quotes. Yeah. Right. And so there's all this in between stuff that's taking away from the actual time that, we have in our day to do real skilled work. The work that in your case, your students are paying for, that coaching, or in the agency side, there's the clients that are paying for a result. And so how would you define work about work in your space? And what are you actively doing to alleviate that?
Yeah, I think like, I love how you kind of contextualized work about work, because I find that those are the things that I struggle with the most when it comes, and like, I'm also thinking about this from a small business owner perspective. So one of the things when I first started consulting that I would think to myself is like, why doesn't everyone do this? Like, why doesn't everyone work for themselves? Like, I get to, I get to set my own hours. I get, like, why wouldn't everyone want this life if there's so much more flexibility to it? And then you get into actually running a small business and, thinking through accounting and tax time and, payroll and making sure that all of the systems and processes that you have no interest in doing, like no one wakes up and is like, what I want to do is like set up payroll. Those are all of, that takes up a good chunk of your brain as a small business owner. And so the way that I kind of think about things is if I dread it, I'm going to hire it out. Like if it's something that I know I'm going to ignore and it's fundamentally important to the business, I'm going to hire someone who's better at that than I am. So we have an accounting team that takes care of some of those thornier things that need to happen that I know I will avoid as a business owner. So I think knowing my strengths and weaknesses as a founder, and then putting systems and processes in place to kind of, pad those areas that I might not be as good at, and hiring for some of those weaknesses, like making sure that you're bringing people on who are not carbon copies of your skills and strengths that are going to push and be. I can already tell our new intern Hannah is like super detail oriented. Like she'll pick out like commas that are in the wrong place and stuff. And I'm like that a lot with writing, but when it comes to like in product, sometimes I'll miss those things. So, I think about work is like, what are the things that I can automate from a marketing perspective that I can know when I'm sleeping are happening? So when you sign up to learn more on Growclass, I know that you're going to get a series of emails, and I know if you visit the pricing page, you're going to get this one. Like I know what that funnel looks like, and I can optimize for that. And then it's the other kind of admin side of the business, how to make sure all of those things get done, and it doesn't eat into my time creatively as a founder to do the things that I actually am interested in, and frankly not better at than I am at the work stuff.
I think you've definitely unlocked the secret there to being a successful entrepreneur, and I think that's it, right? Why doesn't everyone do this? I think it's not everyone is able to do it. Not everyone is able to think that way. But like, I'm curious, like with someone like Hannah, and you're passing off all these other things that you're not doing anymore, are you then relying on those team members with those specific different disciplines to document those processes? Is that part of the creation and the improvement of your systems? Or are you actually relying on them to do those things? I'm very lucky with who we've brought onto our team. So in anticipation of bringing on, we've got 2 interns joining. One of them joined already this week. Bella, who helped me build Growclass, has been incredible at documenting these processes, not only from the standpoint of here's where you can find everything, but here's how you should think about these things. Here are common things that come up as problems, and here's how we've solved them in the past successfully. When it comes to growth marketing, we're very intentional about teaching people how to design experiments that are rooted in data and that also attach learnings to them. We have a framework called Learn, Validate, Share. And the share piece is what every single company fails to do. So how are you documenting the data you got back, the customer feedback you got back, the insights you got back from every experiment you run in marketing? And how are you not only sharing that internally with your marketing team, but how are you making sure that gets over to product, gets over to support? How are you making sure that gets in front of engineering? Like, how are you actually building experiment documentation systems so that your entire company can learn from the things that you're working on? That's beautiful. Yeah, there's this methodology, around like involving the team. And, one of our developers, I think I talked about it on an earlier episode, but she asked us these 2 questions that I have it on my whiteboard. I think about it all of the time, and we're constantly like talking to our team about this. And it goes like this: am I the only person who knows this information, and would others benefit from this information? And I just think
I love that.
It's so simple and it's so good. And so I've really reduced that down to, 3 things, right? Like, we have this knowledge, we all have it in us. Don't wait. And so if you have an idea, or if you think of a way to update a process to improve it, to make it better, it's 3 steps. It's document, present, implement, right? Like, don't wait for permission, like take it, do the thing, share the knowledge with the team, and make sure that it happens and the knowledge goes to, you know, kind of sit where it needs to be and where it's accessible. So,
and it helps your entire company benefits from that. I always found when I was working at SaaS startups, it would be much more impactful to tell an engineer verbatim what a customer said than for me to try to convince them to do that same thing.
Right.
You know, sharing across that feedback that you get from customers, and even just like being close to the customer on the marketing side. I talk about bus people in the course a little bit. Like, if they were to be hit by a bus, what would happen to your company? Not that we really want to think about people getting hit by buses, and not that that's going to happen, but
it's the most common analogy, though.
Yeah, if that person could no longer be part of your team, what would go missing as a result of that? And a lot of the time at early stage startups, people intentionally become bus people because there's a lot of volatility and they want to be needed in the company. And a lot of the time there's broken leadership structures and people don't get great feedback, so they don't know if they're doing a good job. So as a result of that, they hoard information in order to be valuable. And I think there's a fundamental breakdown in leadership and in communication when people start to feel like they need to do that for job security. So we're constantly coaching kind of founders away from, you know, the siloing of early stage employees and giving good feedback so that people feel validated, so that they feel like they can share and that they're not in competition with their colleagues.
That's it. Yeah. And so like, that was going to be my next question is like, what do you think that owners of organizations aren't considering when it comes to running businesses or processes, whatever it may be? Like, is that it for you? Is that what you see a lot of? And like, is there anything else that you think that these people in leadership are not considering? Like, what are the effects or the impacts, I guess, if you can answer that, of not documenting, of not doing the processes, of continuing to be that bus person? Love the analogy, by the way.
Yeah, I think there's kind of two lenses to think about this, right? There's the process side that is just fundamentally, there are people with more information about your business than you have. You need to unlock that information in a way that you can consume it and that it can be shared across your team. That just makes good logical sense of that you should be processing that information and keeping it somewhere. The other side is like, how are you fundamentally thinking about leadership? Are you thinking about leadership in a way that is going to enable your employees to feel like they can share the things that they've learned, and that they can come to the team with challenges or questions, and that those things are going to be kind of greeted with open arms, and that curiosity is going to be kind of honored in those people, and that you're not creating a culture of competition. Because I still remember, like, back to early days in my tech career, we hired a guy, and my boss, I was so young and so dumb and so like hardcore tech startup person. And we were talking, I was talking to my boss and I was kind of complaining that this person was not working fast enough. And he said, okay, well, help him, like be part of the solution to this problem. And my knee-jerk reaction to that was, well, why would I help him? Because like, I want the promotion. I was very like myopic and selfish in my thinking. Because that competition in a way had been fostered, and because that camaraderie of share information with your team, you know, all boats rise, that culture hadn't been established yet because we were so small. So I think when like leaders should be thinking about how do you make people feel like, you know, if they're working as a team, that everyone's going to be rewarded for that, and that they don't have to kind of keep all their knowledge and gifts inside of them.
That is so well said. Thank you so much for that. Where can people catch up with you, Sarah? I know like if you go to growclass.co, you can learn all about Sarah's program, 8-week program, find out everything there. But where else are you hanging out online? Where can people connect with you?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm a Twitter addict. I hang out on Twitter a lot. So I'm at skstock, and I'm at SK Stockdale on Instagram. I'm on Clubhouse. I don't know how I feel about people podcasting. What do you think about Clubhouse?
Oh man, how much more time do we have? I really like it. And so I've been in a few rooms. I got on the stage one time. I'm waiting for them to, do this whole Fomo, kind of model, because I want to get my own like club. I'd love to get on and talk about Asana and systems and have a club around that. I think they're missing out on not being able to capitalize on like post-production. I think at minimum, we should be able to record them, right? And like repurpose that content and bring more people onto the platform. But I feel like there's a lot happening there. There's a lot of, gurus that are popping up on there. Have a lot to say. And so I don't know, like there's a lot of good. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of good. Okay. I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. I don't feel like I have the time or like mental space to be on another platform and contribute in the ways that you need to. And so I don't know. I think it's still really new. It's a really great model. I think they've done a good job. What are your thoughts though?
So full disclosure, I've only been on a couple of times. Like I've jumped into a couple of rooms. I got an invitation to it like a long time ago. So every time I go in, I have like 400 notifications, which I find overwhelming because I just don't, same as you, like don't have the mental space for just more stuff. I also agree about the post-production. Sometimes I feel like, you're listening to an unstructured podcast of people who aren't podcasters. So they're just talking over each other. And like, it's hard to find where the good information is there. I'm curious. I like the idea. I always go to like, how is this going to be, how are people being protected? How is the space going to be safe? As, someone who gets trolled on Twitter pretty often, I'm like, am I going to be trolled verbally? Like what's going to happen in this platform? So, I've got kind of questions about safety and community. And also I don't know if I have the time to just sit and listen and hope for gems, but I'm going to keep giving it a chance. I'm curious.
Good. Well, let's definitely connect there, because I'll pop in, kind of seldomly, but I think, and this is the last point, that like during the day is when I'd really have any chance to really listen. But during the day, we're working, right? And so it's like, I need that time to focus. I can't have people blabbing. Anyways, there's lots of great stuff in there. Let's definitely connect. Thank you so much, Sarah. I know you're super busy, so I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so great to chat with you.
Good. I'm glad. All right. We'll talk soon.
Yeah. Take care. Bye.
If you like what you heard today, please like, subscribe, and follow on your preferred channel. If you know of a friend or colleague that would benefit from hearing this conversation, please share it with them so that we can reach more listeners just like you. As always, all the links from today's talk will be in the show notes. And remember, if it isn't documented, it didn't happen. We'll see you next time.